In 1930, the sound of gunfire became common in New York City. Men were found dead on the streets, in their cars, and in their favorite restaurants. These were not random killings. They were soldiers falling in a hidden war. This was not just another gang fight over territory. It was a bloody battle for the very soul of the American underworld. The old ways were dying, and the new ways were being born in violence. A new kind of empire was about to rise from the ashes. At the center of this storm were two old kings, Joe the Boss Masseria and Salvatore Maranzano. They were known as the Mustache Petes. They were old-school bosses who came from Sicily, and they brought its ancient rules with them. These men built their worlds like tiny, walled-off kingdoms. They only trusted people from their own hometowns in the old country. Anyone else was an enemy. Their rules were strict, their power was absolute, and their vision was small. But a new generation was rising. Young men like Charles Lucky Luciano had grown up on the streets of America. They saw the world differently. To them, the old rules were not just outdated. They were bad for business. The young gangsters wanted to make money, and they would work with anyone to do it. Italian, Irish, Jewish, it did not matter. The Mustache Petes saw this as a deep insult to their traditions. The young men just saw it as being smart. The tension finally exploded into open war. Maranzano, who came from a town called Castellammarese del Golfo, made his move. He challenged Masseria for total control of New York. This was the start of the Castellammarese War. The fighting was brutal and messy. It spilled out into the open, scaring the public and attracting the police. For the young gangsters trying to build quiet, profitable businesses, this chaos was a disaster. The war was costing them money and putting them all in danger. While he was supposed to be a loyal soldier for his boss, Masseria, Lucky Luciano had a secret. He had a completely new idea for how crime should work. He did not see it as a collection of street gangs. Luciano saw crime as a corporation. A big organized company run by a board of directors. The goal was simple: make as much money as possible, with as little fighting as possible. This was not a war for honor, it was a corporate takeover, but Lucky Luciano's real plan was a secret. While he fought for Masseria, he was also talking to the enemy, Maranzano. He was playing a dangerous game. He was turning both sides against each other. He also broke an even bigger rule. Luciano worked closely with his Jewish friends, Meyer Lansky and Bugsy Siegel. To the old bosses, this was the worst kind of betrayal. Business was for Sicilians only. But Luciano didn't see nationalities. He only saw power. The war turned the streets of New York red. Men were shot down in the middle of the day. A powerful boss could be killed while simply buying fruit from a market stand. Fear was a constant shadow. No one knew who would be next. This was not a clean fight. It was personal and ugly. It was a bloody hunt where old friends became new targets. The city felt like a hunting ground. Every morning brought news of another body left on the sidewalk. Through all this chaos, Luciano and his young crew just watched. They had a cold and brilliant plan. They decided to let the two old lions, Masseria and Maranzano, destroy each other. They would let them bleed each other dry. Every man killed by the old bosses was one less enemy for Luciano to face. Every dollar they spent on the war was a dollar they couldn't use against him later. He was patient. He waited for his moment. And then that moment came. Luciano made the first shocking move. He invited his own boss, Joe Masseria, to lunch at a restaurant. They ate, they talked, and they played cards. It seemed like a normal day. Then Luciano calmly excused himself to go to the bathroom. While he was gone, 4 of his own men walked into the restaurant. The room exploded with gunfire. Joe Masseria was shot to death right at the table. When the police arrived, they found him slumped over his cards. He was still holding one in his hand. It was the ace of spades, the card of death. It looked like the war finally had a winner. With his rival gone, Salvatore Maranzano declared victory. He called a massive meeting with hundreds of gangsters. He stood before them all and gave himself a new title. He was now the capo di tutti I capi, the boss of all bosses. He created the new structure for the mob. He set up the 5 families of New York, a system that still exists today. But he made a huge mistake. He put himself at the very top, like a king. Maranzano lectured the younger men. He told them how things would be under his rule. He didn't understand that he was just another old-world boss. He had won the Castellammarese War, but he had already lost his empire. He just didn't know it yet. But the new king made a fatal mistake. Maranzano saw Lucky Luciano not as a partner but as a threat. He believed the young wolf was too smart, too ambitious. So in the shadows he planned one final hit. A plan to remove Luciano forever and secure his throne. He never got the chance. Luciano was faster. He learned of the plot and struck first. But he didn't send Italian soldiers. He sent men Maranzano's guards would never suspect. They dressed as government agents, walked right into the boss's office, and ended the war. The boss of all bosses was dead. With the old kings gone, Luciano revealed his true vision. He called a meeting of all the top bosses from across the country. He told them the old way of one man ruling everything was over. That idea only led to endless war and bloodshed. It was time for something new. He proposed a council, a board of directors for organized crime. This group, the commission, would settle disputes and manage their shared interests. No single man would have total control. Power would be shared. Decisions would be made through votes, not violence. This moment was the birth of the modern American Mafia. The old, feuding gangs were replaced by a national network. It was organized. It was structured like a real business. And its main goal was making money, not fighting pointless wars. The Castellammarese War was not just a gang conflict, it was a bloody corporate takeover. It burned the old world to the ground. From the ashes, Luciano built a new kind of empire, one that was smarter, stronger, and far more dangerous. The brutal lesson was clear. Following old rules gets you killed, but a new vision, a ruthless plan for the future, can make you a king. Luciano's idea, born from betrayal and blood, created a criminal empire that would control America for the next 50 years. This new machine ran on cold, hard cash. The commission made sure the families worked together. This teamwork made them richer and more powerful than any single boss could ever hope to be on his own. It turned street gangs into a national business. But this peace was bought with a terrible price. Every boss at that first meeting knew how Luciano took power. He betrayed the two men who trusted him most. The message was simple. In this new world, the only real law was survival. The war was over. The fighting stopped. But the silence that followed was far more chilling. It was the quiet of a new empire being built, one that would hold the country in its grip for decades. The modern mob had arrived.